Kia ora koutou. Trying to make as many videos as I can at the moment because I'm conscious that lots of people on lockdown might want something to do. Um, trying to keep the output going. Doing lots on retroactive jealousy at the moment, but I haven't neglected my non-retroactive jealousy sufferer subscribers and patrons and friends and supporters. So one for all the kind of TV nerds out there. Another one of my reviews. Now, I need to say, I think I may have touched on this in the last one, that I kind of assume, perhaps wrongly, that people that will want to watch a review of this are people that have already watched it and they're kind of just interested in other thoughts or opinions on it. So this is not kind of aimed at somebody that's not watched it. This is aimed so it'll be spoilers from the beginning, and there'll be no plot summary. Okay, so this is just kind of because I think I like as soon as I watch anything, I always go straight to the reviews and see what other people have said about it. I find that really interesting. So Lucifer series or season one. Okay, so it's late reviews because obviously this came out, God knows, donkeys years ago. um, I haven't really sold this series very well because I've talked about how I have difficulty following plots and I don't recognise faces, so I don't know. Sometimes I don't even know who the characters are because of all the neurodiversity. But I think maybe I've sold myself a little bit short on that. One of the possibly good things about my reviews is that because I'm neurodiverse, I see things differently. I see things in these TV series that other people don't see, and hopefully that's of interest. Of course, you might disagree, which is absolutely fine, as long as you're polite. And I find that the people who are most likely to be rude or disrespectful on any kind of social media are hobby people, so people that follow music or TV or something like that. If you argue about kind of the more serious things, people tend to be more polite. But if you talk about suicide and or abortion or something like that, I find people tend to be more civilized just in the interactions that I've had anyway. But you talk about kind of music and give an opinion, and other people just completely kind of destroy your personality just because they disagree with you. And I've got lots of theories about why that is, which I've talked about in other videos. But anyway, if you do that to me, I will verbally tear you apart and spit you out in little pieces, because I don't mind people disagreeing with me. In fact, it's really good. But like Hannibal Lecter, I have no tolerance for bad manners. So Lucifer, loved it. I think it all hinges on the lead actor, doesn't it? Is it? Oh God, I can't remember what he's called. Tom or Tim? It's Tom Ellis, isn't it? I think. What a talented performer, and what a brilliant job for somebody that's studied their craft really well, and is an all round kind of performing artist as well as an actor. Brilliant singing, the musical bits fantastic. So good. You could just watch him, I think, or I could, he's and the script is good, the dialogue's good, it's quite intelligent. I like that. How would you look at this? Would you look at it, if you kind of put it so I'd say comedy drama. How much comedy, how much drama? I'd say kind of 70-30 on the comedy side, really. Which is kind of interesting because it's like how with so much comedy in it, and really it's quite a far-fetched setup, far-fetched premise. So did you buy the drama? Could you buy the drama? Could you buy into the jeopardy and the seriousness of the plot where it was serious? I think I did just about, but I was kind of, I was more there for the, just the fun, really. So yeah, that's quite, and yeah, so it was pretty far out there for for even a kind of a fantasy. And the cosmology is kind of quite interesting because although they've kind of, they've loosely based it on a kind of seemingly Judeo-Christian kind of model. of Satan, or Lucifer, or Beelzebub, or Old Scratch, which is his favourite one, I believe. They've taken amazing creative liberties with that, really, haven't they? Especially with the kind of cliffhanger at the end where we're talking about mum. God knows what that means. God knows. So in, like, for those of you not that kind of cleaned up on theology, in no way does Judeo-Christianity acknowledge Lucifer as being the son of God, or a son of God. So that's really quite kind of interesting. I quite like their boldness in that, really. They're kind of, they kind of quote the Bible here and there and throw in the odd kind of theological reference, but then they go completely. They throw away. If they're using the Bible as a kind of a rule book, then they throw it away before they've even begun, really. But that's okay. You can do anything with fantasy, can't you? And I like the idea that he's a misunderstood character about whom people make lots of assumptions. That for example, how he doesn't lie, and his word is his bond, and he doesn't go around tempting people to do evil things. But essentially, he's a punisher, but he's also kind of so he does kind of tempt people to do things, doesn't he? He kind of says he doesn't. I don't think he does it wholesale. That's not his raison d'etre. But he's kind of quite encouraging for people to kind of do as thou wilt, to quote Mr. Crowley. So yeah, I mean, he was more. I mean, I loved the character. There was a real childlike simplicity and childlike narcissism. From a kind of Freudian point of view, he was kind of pure id, just purely, purely interested in the fulfillment of drives and urges, and at the same time very charming and very charismatic. But the character development, yeah, great. Really interesting character development. Where's it going? Not just the kind of the more fantasy elements, like we know him becoming more physically vulnerable, but his personal development, and the fact that they've got him engaged with a therapist, who I think is pretty, is pretty. Normally when therapists are portrayed, because obviously I'm a psychotherapist, when therapists are portrayed on TV and film, often it's really bad, and they say things. I watch it, and the therapist says things. I think, oh my God, a therapist would never say that. So it's not bad, it's kind of quite good. And obviously there's a clear recognition from the start that a therapist should never sleep with their clients. That's kind of, that's clearly kind of outlined. That's a breach of ethics. The other thing as well is when I can't remember their bloody names, but his brother, the angel, sets himself, pretends to be another therapist, and hooks in Lucifer's therapist by saying, "Oh, we can sound each other out and talk about cases and things." Well, that is done with therapists, but it's done in a much more formal. So I'm probably taking all the fun out of this now, only by telling all the technical stuff about therapists, but I can, so I will. So yes, therapists do that, but they don't do that willy-nilly. That's done in a very clear, structured and contractual way. So, for example, I, as a therapist, see a supervisor. So a supervisor is another therapist who makes themselves available for what's known as supervision. Supervision, we tend to think of supervision as somebody that watches over you, that kind of is on the kind of the shop floor, kind of making sure that you're doing things properly. So a supervisor in counselling and psychotherapy is somebody that is kind of a safety. It's a safety net, really, for the client and also for the therapist. That because everything has to be kept in the strictest of confidence. The therapist needs to be able to take that somewhere to process it in a safe way. So the supervisor is another therapist who holds everything, that the other counsellor or therapist says to them in strictest confidence, and offers a place for them to offload and process the clinical material from the sessions that they're having with clients, and talk about difficulties and review their professional practice, and talk about kind of complex things like transference and counter-transference, which we won't go into here, but I might do a video on that. And also that's a way of making sure that the client remains safe, because the power, effectively, the influence is probably a better word, that a therapist has over a client is potentially massive. So if a therapist kind of isn't practicing professionally and cleanly and well, bad things can happen. So that's why one therapist would discuss cases with another therapist, but it's done usually with a signed contract and confidentiality agreements, and done in a very kind of structured way. It wouldn't be a case of a therapist turning up in a shared a place where people hire rooms and saying, oh look, let's talk about each other's cases informally. It wouldn't be done that way. It's done in group practices. So for example, I work for an organisation, so we would, as colleagues, we would discuss cases, and that's perfectly fine, and that's all built into the fabric and the structure and the client agreements of what we do. So that bit's not strictly kind of accurate, but then also say Lucifer kind of running a nightclub is not strictly kind of real either, is it? So maybe I need to take it a bit less seriously. So the other thing I like about this is Lucifer's kind of, he's got some kind of superpowers going on there, but they're kept a little bit kind of mysterious, so we don't know quite what their limits are, quite what he can do and quite what he can't do. And I think that was really good as well. I think that was kind of cleverly done. The other thing that's interesting is, with American stuff is, it's always interesting in American dramas and films how they cast British actors or actors. Usually I say British, usually it's English. They usually cast kind of English characters as villains, don't they? Or, as this kind of sophisticated villain. Now it's interesting because he's actually Welsh, but he's perfected the plummy English accent, so you would know that he was Welsh. So if he kind of presented in a Welsh way, that would kind of put a very interesting and different twist on it. But I like his kind of posh kind of English thing, and it's interesting that there was one little kind of joke in there where he talked about the trunk of a car, he talked about the boot of a car, and then he said, oh, trunk, because obviously in the UK, the back bit of a car where you put stuff is known as the boot, and in America it's known as the trunk. So it's kind of interesting that he's kind of, he's a fallen angel, but who identifies as English in America for some reason. And the alienness of him is kind of interesting how that's portrayed. Did make me think. I know I compared everything to Doctor Who, which is probably not a good thing necessarily. But I found out recently, after watching it, that actually it comes from a comic that was written by Neil Gaiman, and Neil Gaiman has written some episodes of Doctor Who. So that kind of that sense of talking to other people and saying, "Oh, you humans are weird." That's kind of very Doctor Who kind of thing. And I think it's something very appealing, particularly for neurodiverse people like myself, to see things, to be able to empathise with a character who's an outsider, who's looks like a human and interacts with humans, but actually doesn't quite 100% get them, because that's what it's like when you're neurodiverse and you're dealing with neurotypical people. If none of those terms make sense, check out my other videos on that. Maisie, I thought, was an interesting character. Again, the cosmology, I don't know what's going on there, because she doesn't seem to be a fallen angel. She seems to be characterised as a demon, so maybe in this cosmology, not all demons are fallen angels, but some people just are demons. I like the way she looks. There's something about her mouth, isn't it? It looks like she might have great big long pointy teeth, but you never quite see them. I don't know, is that just me? Or I kind of sometimes look at her mouth and think, yeah, you can see some fangs there that are kind of, you can only just sort of get the sense of there's been some fangs, but you can't see them. So yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. The other thing I thought was really nice, really good, was that little joke about goats. That his brother had kind of set up the whole goat analogy, just to piss him off, and then later on he says, where do people get this goat thing from? And there was, of course, that kind of thing with the quasi-Satanists, and the guy's got the goat head on, goat mask kind of thing, and he knocks it on the ceiling. I thought that was very nicely done. So, and this whole relationship that's going on, what's the deal with Chloe Decker? That's kind of fascinating. He feels more vulnerable, and he draws blood and things when he's with her, and she's immune to his charms. Really, really interesting. Really intriguing. It makes me want to watch more. Although I'm not interested, I'm watching series 7 of Dexter at the moment. So I did a review of up to series 6, up to season 6. So Dexter's it's kind of similar, isn't it? Another kind of outsider character, somebody that's different, holding a secret, doesn't quite see the world as other people do. So it kind of makes sense why these things would appeal to me, because that's my life experience. Also, I kind of, Lucifer has all the symptoms of ADHD as well, which kind of I think is really, really cool. Okay, I'm sure there's some things that I meant to talk about that didn't, and some things that I will think about afterwards, which I'll put in the description box below. Please join me in the comment section in having a nice discussion. These things are supposed to be fun. It's not something, there's never any, I don't think it's ever good to be rude to anyone, but if we're going to discuss something like this, then you don't even go there unless your intention is to join in the discussion, have some fun, have some nice positive interaction. If you disagree and you don't like my review, that's fine. Just go and listen to somebody else's review. We're all different. There's space for all of us. Okay, these things aren't real. They're just fun, okay? I might do another review of Dexter. Still watching. So I'm alternating all these series. So Falling Skies we'll probably do some more on. I want to do something on Walking Dead at some point. I'm way behind on that, and I've started watching Fear the Walking Dead. So I watched the first season of that, so we might do some more stuff around that. And also I'm looking to do a review of the 1982 Barbara Hershey film The Entity, because I started to do a review of a song, and in some discussion with some people that watched the video, they have told me that they think the song is based on that movie. So I'm looking to watch that movie, but I can't get hold of it at the moment. I managed to find one streaming site that let me watch half of it, and then it said that's your lot. So I've not been able to get hold of The Entity and watch that. So I want to do one on The Entity, but that will be quite kind of specific, because I'll be linking my review of The Entity to the song. But I will try and make it broad enough so that someone's not interested in the song, just interested in the movie, then it'll still be watchable. So, yeah, there you go. Lucifer Series 1. So it'll be a while before I get around to Series 2, but no doubt I will speak of this again. So, in the meantime, Rangimarie.